unraised offspring, deceiving gods, familial tragedies, and rampant murder. This is what you should expect from Kratos' story. Kratos has a simple to understand and yet complicated story to tell. A man born from Zeus's affairs with the mortal woman Callisto, this would be the start of a life of hardship, and although this is a story about gods, his life is far from godly. With that being said, why do I think the new God of War games are better? To answer that question, we have to take a better look at how Kratos' story evolves. For the sake of context, let's start at the beginning. Kratos was born as a Spartan and lived most of his life as a Spartan soldier. After making his way up the ranks, he led his own army under the Spartan banner, winning countless battles. The knowledge of his legendary prowess as a general was known and feared throughout all of Greece, but one day he saw himself forced to make a decision that would forever seal his fate. As an act of desperation, he requested the aid of Ares, the god of war, in order to defeat the barbarian army that was proving to be the most difficult foe Kratos had to ever face thus far. Ares granted his wish, but with one condition. Kratos' life now belonged to the god of war, and he was to do his bidding till the end of his days. And so, he does. That is until Ares makes Kratos do the unthinkable. Ares devises a plan in which while Kratos is in a drunken killing rampage throughout a town, near the end of his raid, Kratos then walks into a temple and slaughters everyone in sight. Little did he know that two of those people had been his very own wife and daughter. The village oracle, who had warned him prior to entering the temple, curses him to bear the ashes of his very own family on his skin, making him wear his dishonor and to be known forever as the ghost of Sparta. All of the God of War games before the 2018 reboot have one thing in common. They are stories of either revenge or of a fight for control of Kratos' own life. After the whole Ares affair, Kratos' place amongst the gods, for an extensive period of time, was one of being a pawn in someone else's game. He kept being used and, well, abused by many of the Olympian gods and goddesses. However, Kratos had to break free. The way he saw it, gods were selfish and egotistical beings, behaving like children and acting as though their actions had no consequences. Gods were no better than men, if not worse. In 2018, we met a very different man. Kratos seemed calmer, quieter, and have an introspective demeanor. His life had changed to a point it seemed almost unrecognizable. There were two things that made him recognizable though. Those were his pale skin and the red tattoo that courses throughout his body. We are introduced to what seems like his new family: Atreus, his young son, and his second late wife, Faye. Since departing the wrecked Greek world, Kratos began a quiet new life in a Nordic forest in Midgard. He no longer had any interest in the affairs of the gods. He was now tasked to carry Faye's ashes to the highest peak in all of the 9 realms, as this was her last wish. The current story of Kratos would not be possible without the origin story I have mentioned, so there is value to both, since one could not exist without the other. By playing the last 2 games, you come to understand that he would never have become the man he is without 2 factors: the pain and injustices he has faced, and the mistakes he has committed. My point is, Kratos has been given depth, and much of his adventures with Atreus end up becoming lessons on how to become a man that is strong, not only of strength, they are gods after all, but strength of willpower, resilience, and perseverance. Time and time again, Kratos teaches Atreus that the distinction between good and evil aren't always as clear as it seems, that temperance is a virtue to be sought after, emotions, although useful and important to one's humanity, need to be mastered, and that no matter how superior you might believe yourself to be in comparison to others, whether it be status, wealth, strength, or the simple fact that both Kratos and Atreus are deities, a man's actions are the only quantifiable proof of a man's quality of being. It's funny to see as you experience the game how it's possible for a child like Atreus to misinterpret his dad's reasons for acting the way that he does. Atreus sees discipline as a punishment rather than a valuable lesson, unleashing your anger as a rightful punishment for a grave offense, withdrawal from an unnecessary fight as cowardice. In every step of the way, Kratos is there to teach him lesson after lesson, in hopes that Atreus does not have to learn these lessons through the same mistakes they had committed in a very distant past. After giving it some thought, I realized why I liked the new and evolved Kratos so much more. He had become a sort of less than perfect stoic, but still very different from what his character was like when we first got introduced to him. Now, what is Stoicism, you ask? Well, Stoicism is a school of philosophy that originated in Athens back in the year 300 before Christ, originally started by Zeno of Citium. Ironic that it's an Athenian philosophy, considering that Kratos is from the Spartan state of Greece, but I digress. Many times when someone is branded as stoic, many tend to make the mistake of meaning emotionless. However, this is wrong. Stoics, although valuing emotion, tend to use logic as a tool for problem solving and to interpret the world around them. To be stoic is to believe that virtue is sufficient for happiness. The Stoics divided virtues into 4 main types: wisdom, justice, courage, in moderation. Of all of the Stoics, there are probably 3 that would be the most notable. Those are Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, Seneca, a teacher to the emperor Nero, and Epictetus, born a slave and turned into a teacher. Side note, I really recommend Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, by the way. Pretty good book and introduction to Stoicism. Of all 4, Kratos probably embodies courage and moderation more than the rest. However, Stoicism also bases itself on the fact that you will fail at it time and time again, thus Kratos not embodying it completely. There are moments where Kratos is too hard on Atreus, and you see it. At times, his internal struggle between choosing whether to offer comfort or to be realistic and stern. It's a difficult choice to make, given that as a parent, you want to be who your child feels the safest with. However, simultaneously, you know how harsh the world out there can get. It's unforgiving, it tests you, it drills you, it uses you, and it can eat you up and spit you out, and you have no choice to make besides to keep moving forward. It is true that Kratos' character is somewhat unhealthy and represses much of his feelings and experiences. You see it in the way he withholds honesty from his son about how he feels, about his past, and even the nature of Atreus' existence. But I think that the writers making Kratos have such shortcomings is important. It makes it known that he is still part human. To be stoic is an ideal, something to aim for. To try and try and try and then try once again because you're supposed to fail. It takes our nature into account. We have faulty judgments from time to time. We make the wrong choices. We succumb to lust, desire, gluttony, anger, anxiety, amongst many others. But life is an adventure in and of itself that has no particular end destination. The quest for self-improvement never really ends, and that's why Kratos' story is so relatable. No matter how much he has changed, for better or for worse, there is always a path ahead.
What about the old games, bro? They were so dope. I played all of them 358 times, and there is nothing better.
Whoa, hold up. I'm not saying that the old games are bad. In fact, I love them too. I wouldn't be playing the new ones if I wasn't such a big fan of the old ones. The thing is, I still remember when I first found out about God of War. I must have been around 8 or 9 watching videos of the crazy and awesome boss fights in 360p back in the day. However, for the franchise to evolve, so had the character. The rage-induced, grumpy Kratos that we were accustomed to is great, but I can't help thinking that part of the appeal of the older games was how everything was about vengeance, punishment, and violence for the sake of violence. It was a simple premise. I believe it's as simple as that. We grew up. It's now been 18 years since the release of the first installment of the series, and just to put that into perspective, people born in 2005 are now legal adults. Santa Monica Studios realized that it's time to evolve the character. Initially, his motivations were simple. Bad man did wrong thing to Kratos, now Kratos must kill bad man. But now that the audience that grew up with the older games, and that I would hope is a little bit wiser, understands that these complicated lessons that we now witness Kratos teaching Atreus of are what growth is all about. Some of us have had to learn these lessons throughout our own lives, and whether we think they are right or wrong, it is good to see a game bringing such topics onto the table. The only other game I've played that I think does this are the Last of Us games. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine. I hope you can enlighten me on your opinion in the comments below. However, if for some reason you are upset at my points, remember,
close your heart to it.
That's all jokes, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you did, and my name's Solus, and I hope you have a good one.